Sweet. Hello, and welcome to today's episode of Her Version. This podcast is dedicated to sharing stories of struggle to triumph, a platform that allows individuals to tell their truth in order to inspire and uplift others. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria. If you are new to this podcast, make sure you follow, like, subscribe, and share. Let's jump right in. Thank you for joining us today for this episode of Her Version. The Her Version platform is built on storytelling and the understanding that many times our greatest learning experiences come from listening to other people's stories. Today, I am speaking with an amazing woman named Jenn Masse. Jenn is here today to talk about high expectations, lacking inspiration, and her journey of chasing different career paths, titles, and promotions to find happiness. But in the end, she found herself to be lost and burnt out. Today, Jenn is an ICF certified mindset and empowerment coach who is passionate about empowering women and small business owners to break free from the limitations that are holding them back from achieving success on their own terms. Welcome, Jenn.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to sit down and talk about this, because I think that this is a subject that all women low-key have.
Yeah.
For real. Like, it doesn't matter what kind of crap you have going on in your life. This is something that we all deal with. And I so appreciate you being open about it and vulnerable about it, and really allowing us to kind of dig into, your journey and what it looked like to kind of better assist and help us. So I kind of want to just jump right in. I would love to hear your early years, your childhood, what your life looked like as a child and a teenager that kind of like set you up for, what your journey entailed.
Yeah. So I always laugh because it's like typically when you hear these stories of someone like pivoting their career or like having this big aha moment, like something traumatic happened. And nothing traumatic happened in my life. Like, I had an amazing upbringing. My parents were wonderful, together, not divorced. I had an older brother who is a goofball. And he is actually the source of, like, I think everything. Once I kind of went back, and once I was old enough to kind of reflect back and like look at what quote unquote went wrong, like what led me to where I was. And so my brother's 2.5 years older than me. And my parents always, in their eyes, did everything equally, but I was the responsible child.
Okay.
I was the responsible one. I was the one who was saving before I was ever born, who was told at a very young age, like, you have your head screwed on straight, like, you'll take care of us when we're older. My brother, to no fault of his own, has ADD. He has learning disabilities. So he just couldn't keep it together.
Yeah.
And so I was always the one who was like, be the perfect child.
Mm-hmm.
Like, David is enough. Like, he takes all of my parents' time. So like, Jenn's the good one. Jenn's the quiet one. Jenn's not the troublemaker. Jenn walks like the path that we tell her to walk, and she's fine.
Yeah.
And it was always like going through school. We lived in a small town. So going through school, they're like, oh, another Masse. I'm like, no, I'm not him. No, I'm me. Like, I'm a good kid. Like, don't worry, I'm a good kid. So my whole life was like being the responsible one, like just being the good kid and having those high expectations. Like, those expectations that I then carried forward into my career were set for me at such a young age of like, do this. Like, my dad from a very young age was like, you're going to be the one that's going to carry us. Like, you're going to be the CEO of a company one day. Like, you're going to be a VP. You're going to have the 401, like, you're going to do all these things. I'm like, okay. If that makes you happy. Okay. If that's what, like, I associated that with love as a child.
Yeah.
So like that, and it's like one of those things that it never really clicked until I had my face down moment in corporate, that all of a sudden I'm like, it was him. It was my brother's fault.
That's so funny.
But yeah, in a nutshell, like, that was me. Like, star athlete, star student. Everything was like, you know, on paper, I had a great life, but I was also very angry. I was flipping through some journals that my mom gave me, like that I kept as a child. Writing has always been my outlet. And I was like, ooh, I had anger issues.
That is so funny. Wait,
Mm-hmm.
when did you start writing in a journal?
Probably the moment I could. Like, it goes back to where you can barely read it, like probably kindergarten.
Wow.
Block lettering. I went through a phase where I wrote in secret code, so my parents couldn't tell what I was writing, even though the rubrics or whatever was in the back. Like, someone could easily just flip to the back of the journal, figure out my code, and figure out what I was journaling about.
Oh, that's so funny.
Mm-hmm.
Good for you. Yeah, I started journaling at 12. I don't know if you know this, but I come on every Monday and I read from my old journals. Did you know that?
Really?
Yeah. It's low key, super embarrassing.
I would love to join in because it would probably normalize a lot of what I wrote about. Like, oh, I have journal entries in there. Like, I mean, I have the standard kid acting out ones. Like, I hate my mom. And then my mom would be like, we love you. I'm like, you weren't supposed to read this. Oh yeah, I have a whole series where I'm like crushing on guys in 8th grade.
Yes, that's where I'm at right now. It's so embarrassing. Literally every dude that comes into my life, I'm writing about and just loving all of them. It's so embarrassing.
Mm-hmm. There's a few names that immediately just came to me, like, oh, I remember journaling about them. I wonder where they are now.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, so I started at 12 and I'm going in chronological order. I went through and I numbered all of them in order for the years, you know. So I'm just going 1 through, I think I have like 36 or 37 of them. That's awesome. I think I'm on number 9, maybe. Okay. But I'm 15. So it's so bad. It's so bad.
It's also really funny because I don't know about you, but like you can tell when I'm like in it and out of it, because all of a sudden I'll be like, tomorrow I'm doing this. And then 6 months later, I'm like, so I haven't journaled in a while. Like, yeah, accurate. That's really how I live my life right now.
Same. Yes, same. Oh, that's great. So so everything was going good for you. Star athlete, everything's great. You finished school and then you get into career. So what did your career life look like?
So I'm going to reverse for a second. Because that got me through high school.
Oh, okay.
And I think that getting into college is really important because I wanted to be a marketing major. I wanted to do all things marketing, but I went to school in 2008 when the market crashed. So my dad, because, you know, I had my parents on a pedestal, was basically like, you need to be an accountant. Like, you need to be an accountant. You're really good at math, which, full disclosure, being good at math does not mean that you're good at accounting. So anyone who is being fed that lie right now, I'm calling bullshit. It doesn't. It does not compute. It is
That's great.
Like, go be a math major or something if you like math, and just don't do it. I shouldn't say don't do accounting. We all need accountants. I'm meeting with my accountant tonight. But so I chose accounting because my dad was like, accounting will guarantee you a job.
That's
when
true.
You graduate.
Yeah.
Like, accounting is the fast path to success. Accounting will make you boatloads of money. And we all know that the goal in life is to make boatloads of money so you can retire someday.
Yeah.
So anyways, fast forward to my career, I started in public accounting and I was miserable. Like, absolutely miserable. Never mind the fact I failed most of my accounting classes. But I started in public accounting, and I don't know how much you know about that industry.
Nothing. Zero.
Yeah, lots of introverts. Like, the running joke is that like accountants look at their shoes when they talk to you. I was in auditing, and people don't like being audited. So like, I, as an extrovert in a career surrounded by introverts, where I would go talk to clients who, as a principal, hated me. As a principal, they were like, you're an auditor. You're here to yell at us. Go away.
Yes.
So it's miserable. Like, I was like, this is awful. I tried to get my CPA, Certified Public Accounting certification. Thankfully, I failed all 4 sections because that's like another downward spiral they like, basically you have 18 months to pass all 4 sections and it's a rolling 18. So what happens is like, if you pass one and then fail, you might lose your first one. So it's like, it could take people like 4 or 5 years to pass this exam. It's awful.
Wow.
So yeah, so I'm really grateful that I failed all 4 sections because I didn't have that hanging over my head. I was just like, cool. Told you I wasn't good at this. Around the same time, the governing board for accounting changed the rules, where if you wanted to sit for your CPA, you needed 150 hours versus the standard 120 that you get in college.
Yeah.
So I failed all 4 and I was no longer going to be grandfathered in. So I'm like, well, I'm not going back to school just to take this stupid test.
Wow.
So yes, that was like 2.5 years of awfulness. Like, my boss never talked to me. The only time that she would talk to me would be like, hey, have you passed your exam yet? Like, no, I haven't. Please recognize me for like the energy that I bring to the team and like the leadership that I bring to the team. So I quickly about-faced and I moved to a international science company, which I also failed all my science classes. So like, as much as I was a star student, like, science was not a strong suit, and accounting, I just hated it. So I just don't think I wanted to do good at those classes on principle. But I went to work for this international company, still in accounting, still in audit, but it was internal audit. So in my head, I'm like, oh, this is so much better because like, we're all on the same team. Like, they're going to want me there. I got to travel internationally, which was amazing. So I was in and out of Europe and Asia and doing all these really cool things, but people still hated me because I was an auditor and I was still going in and yelling at them and telling them that like they weren't following the controls.
Wow.
So a couple years into that, I'm like, I'm done. Like, I love the travel, but you also don't tell me my schedule. So I'm like missing family events and missing friends events. Like, I was starting to really feel the impact in my life.
Yeah.
So then I was like, well, I always wanted to do marketing. So
yes,
went back to school. I got my MBA in marketing. Thankfully, my company paid for it. And I moved into like a marketing sales development type role and like a project management role that supported the sales team. I'm like, this is cool. Like, I'm finally getting a little bit closer to what I thought I wanted. And the more and more I like work towards these different things, I was like, I'm still not happy. Like, I'm doing more of the marketing, which is fun, but like, there was a piece of me that felt like it wasn't being fulfilled. So I joined the wellness committee that I loved because that, for me in my career, the wellness committee, which is a volunteer spot, was the thing that brought me the most joy. And that's because I really got to connect with people, empower people, help educate people, bring programs in. And it was all like health and wellness related, but we did mental health and everything else as well. And then my company got rid of that around the same time that I was skipped over for a promotion. It was just like that and my company being acquired and like a few different moving pieces.
Yeah.
Led to a downward spiral, like an 18-month downward spiral where I was so burnt out. I was like fighting for this position that they promised me that never came to fruition. They also promised it to a client. So it's a little PO'd because I'm like, you lied. Like, you lied. You didn't lie to me. You lied to a client.
Totally. Wow.
But yeah, so like my career was very, like, I was in the President's Club. So I was like a super high achiever. And I worked my way up the ranks. It just, something was always just missing.
Yeah.
And I think I realized that when I was pitching a project to my boss, who was like a corporate robot, who's an awful human to report to.
Oh, no.
But I was pitching a project to him and it was a project that was going to help our sales reps and an underserved segment of our market. So it was kind of a twofold project where I'm like, these customers are not getting any product from anybody. Like it's just an ignored segment. And it's not just about pushing product and making sales. We sold educational science supplies. So it's like getting these supplies to children in schools. So I was like, oh, like this is a project that can like get product to those kids so they can like have a better education, and it can help our reps do that in such a way that they're not getting slammed on their numbers. And he didn't even finish saying no, and I just broke down.
Oh,
like, ugly, snotty, hyperventilating.
oh,
And I'm not an emotional person, which I know is a lie. We're all emotional beings, but like I don't show my emotions.
okay.
So for that to happen in his office, I was like, something's wrong.
Yes.
Something's wrong.
Yeah. Wow.
I was always the one that was applauded for like, doesn't matter what's going wrong. Jenn's got like a backbone of steel. Like Jenn's an emotional wall. And like, so for that to happen, I could not control myself.
Wow.
And he was like, go home. I was like, okay. He was like, it was a Wednesday. And he was like, go home, come back Monday. And like through my hyperventilating tears, I'm like, but I have a meeting with Linda in a half an hour. And like, I'm at a conference on Monday. So like, I'm actually not going to be until Wednesday. And he was like, just leave. He was like, I'll call Linda. I'm like, okay. And Linda was like the source of a lot of my stress at the time. So I'm like, yeah, you do you. But yeah, so I took a couple days off, and it was when I took a couple days off, I'm like, I cannot do this anymore. I can't keep chasing this. I can't keep putting my future in somebody else's hands.
Yeah.
And I literally Googled careers that will allow me to inspire and empower people. And that's when
Yeah. Thank Google.
Thank Google. So yeah.
Yes. Oh, that's cool.
Over a decade that led me to that moment. And I literally was like, career. And I found coaching.
Wow.
And I found a coaching certification program that helped me rediscover who I was, which was the most critical part in my whole journey, because I did not know who I was. I don't think I've ever known who I was, because I was always the good girl. But the good girl, I don't think is actually who I was. I think I've always been a rebel.
The best.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So now looking back, you know, and the journey that you've been on, where you are now, what does success mean to you now?
Yeah. So I had to work through this.
Okay.
Because for me, success was always tied to the numbers. Success was always tied to having a sturdy 401k account,
and like what you were saying, lots of money.
Lots of money, boatloads of money.
Boatloads of money, yeah.
And now success means living true to who I am, honoring my values, and empowering and inspiring as many people as possible, while also prioritizing the things that bring me joy outside of coaching.
That's awesome.
So it's like, it's really funny, because I feel like lately I've heard a lot of people be like, oh, you're building an empire. I'm building an empire. And I'm like, I'm not building an empire. Like, I'm building a cute European mountain village that values vacation time.
Awesome.
Like, that's success for me.
Got it.
So it's like, for me, it's the perfect balance of empowering, inspiring, and having the freedom to just be myself and take naps and go for hikes. And right now, go play in the snow, because we got like a foot of snow yesterday.
That's great.
Yeah, it's a complete 180. It's not tied at all to the numbers. I'm very privileged that I don't have to focus on the numbers, but I'm also in a position where I'm like, as long as I'm taken care of financially, like I know my bare minimum.
Yeah.
As long as my bare minimum is taken care of, we have financial planners who can keep us in check. So as long as we're taken care of, fun comes next.
Yeah. That's awesome. Very cool. So I know you talk a lot about energy leadership. What is energy leadership?
So energy leadership is actually the coaching program that I went to. So my whole coach training is grounded in energy leadership. And energy leadership is basically the concept that whether we choose to or not, we lead with our energy. So I feel like we've all been there where you like walk into a room and you can immediately tell if the other person's in a good mood or not. They are leading with their energy. They are sending you signals being like, stay away or come on over.
Okay.
So through energy leadership, in a nutshell, because I could talk for hours about this because it's like crazy powerful once you learn the concepts. In a nutshell, there's two types of energy. There's anabolic energy, which is like the proactive, driving, motivating, exciting, creative energy.
Okay.
And then there's catabolic energy, which is the stress reaction. So that's the fight, flight, freeze, whatever, the Fs. And most of us live in a stress reaction. So through energy leadership, you can choose to shift into a higher energy level because those two energy levels those two types of energy break into 7 levels. Mm-hmm. So once you learn the different perspective or the different mindsets of the 7 levels, you can in any moment be like, oh, what level am I responding as right now? What would a level 5 look like? What would a level 7 look like? And you can start to shift your brain to realize that your perspective is just one perspective. Got it. So you can start to shift and choose what energy levels. And there is no good and bad. They all have purpose. So the goal isn't to live at the highest energy level. The goal is to be able to go in and out and choose.
Wow. I can appreciate that.
Yeah. So it's like, the example I like to give is like level 1, the benefit, if you're sick, you're allowed to be taken care of. You're allowed to be apathetic. You're allowed to just lay there. Like level 2 is anger. So if you have been on hold with customer service for an hour and you're not getting anywhere, you're allowed to get angry and frustrated and like bring a little bit of this like stressful energy to try to speak to a manager.
Yeah.
Or if you're in the woods and, you know, you see a rattlesnake or a bear, you want the stress reaction. Okay. you want stress in that moment. You don't want to be like, oh, hey bear. Stop.
That's
you
great.
Want to go get coffee? Like, no. So like there's benefits to all the levels, but it's all about choosing how you show up and choosing the energy that you bring to this world.
That's awesome. Yeah, I can totally see that. Wow, very cool.
Yeah.
As far as what we should be doing as females, what do you think are 3 things that we should be doing as females to kind of step out of our comfort zone and kind of redefine ourselves? What should we be doing?
I would say step 1, acknowledge that you're in your comfort zone.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like acknowledge that you're in a bubble. And what's I think really important is the comfort zone is not always comfortable. So when I was working in my corporate career, I was not comfortable. I was not happy, but I was safe. And it wasn't until I was willing to acknowledge that safety was what was keeping me there.
Got it.
But that safety was also a false sense of safety. And I had to acknowledge that I was there and in this little bubble that I was afraid to get out of. So once I defined what that zone looked like, I was then able to be like, well, what would it look like to get out of this?
Got it.
What's the first step? So for me personally, so after my breakdown, my emotional awakening, if we want to use Brene Brown language, after my spiritual awakening, I enrolled in a coaching program. Okay. And as much as I wanted to quit my job, like before my coaching program even started, money for me was the biggest mental limitation and limiting beliefs that I had to personally work through. So I was like, I can stay in my corporate career. So it was a step out by enrolling in the coaching program and like taking steps to get me to where I wanted to go while still having a foot in the zone.
Got it.
So it's like, figure out for you personally, like what's your zone and what are the first baby steps you can do to get you out of it. Yeah. Whether that's researching a program, leaving a relationship. Some people might have to do it cold turkey. Others can like start to branch out.
Yeah.
Know your values and know your values, like not the values that you think you should have. Actually take time to understand like what is most important to me. What are my non-negotiables? And taking little steps to start prioritizing those non-negotiables isn't usually enough to also start to get you out of your comfort zone.
When you say that, what is I mean, obviously someone can just like sit down and figure that out, but what are the steps to even figure out what your like non-negotiables are? Can you give maybe an example of what that is? And then, I mean, do they just sit down and write a list? What does this look like?
So there's a bunch of different resources out there. I actually have one. I have a values assessment on my website that people can just go download for free.
At this website?
At consciouscoaching.com. Yep.
Oh, very cool. Okay.
That one.
Yes.
Like, which way is my hand going?
Yes.
The process that I like people to follow is there's like a list of 100 words.
Okay.
Not 100. There's just a big list of words that are typical values for people.
Okay.
Step 1 is circle any word that feels good to you.
Okay.
Step 1, just circle anything that feels good to you. Then there's 4 criteria that will help you start to cross out words. And the thing I always like to tell people are whatever, just because you cross out something doesn't make you a bad person. So if you cross out, so the 4 criteria.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it doesn't make you a bad person.
Okay,
so the
wait.
4 criteria are, does this value define me at my best?
Okay.
Does this value bring me a sense of joy and relief? I'm blanking on the third one. And the last one is, would I be willing to the third one is, would I prioritize this value when making hard decisions?
Okay.
And then, will I prioritize this over all other values?
Wow. Okay.
So you start crossing off values. And the goal is to get between 2 and 5. And the example I like to give is family. Okay. A lot of people value family.
Yeah.
But I value my family too. But as you heard in my story, I did not always make the best decisions. And I was not always my best self when I let my family's opinions influence me.
Got it.
So for me, when I first did this, I circled family. I'm like, well, why do I value family? I value trust and honesty.
Okay.
So I crossed off family and left trust and honesty.
Beautiful.
Because then I was able, like, if I have somebody in my family who crosses trust and honesty, then I can choose trust and honesty over that family member.
Beautiful. Wow.
Yeah. So
absolutely.
So those are examples. I ended up personally landing on freedom and connection. So I used freedom and connection to make every decision in my life. And even using the family as an example, when I was, I just moved from Philadelphia to Oregon. So I drove across the country, and Pittsburgh is a good first stop for that first night. Like, I worked all day. Pittsburgh is a good stop. My brother lives in Pittsburgh. My brother and I don't always see eye to eye. I'm not always my best self when I'm like planning stuff with my brother. That we all know why, based on the story I shared earlier.
Yes.
My mom was giving me a lot of grief about, like, why don't you stay with David? Why don't you stay with David? I'm like, well, David's not responding to me. David's not giving me clear answers. So I was like, you know what? Freedom. I'm going to book a hotel room.
Yeah.
that's 45 minutes away from him, more on my path. If he wants to come see me, he can come see me. But freedom and connection, like freedom. And I was by myself with the dog. So I'm like, I want the freedom to wake up whenever I wake up and keep driving. I want the freedom to show up whenever I want and I have to worry about like keeping my brother or his wife awake. Like, so I used my values.
Yes.
And my brother, he did come down and hang out with me for a little bit. So
yes,
I still got to see him, but it was on my terms.
Yes. Oh, that's great. That whole story is so, it gives me a feeling of being free, you know, and light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a lot of what I coach to is helping people identify those values.
Okay.
And then B, having the confidence to prioritize them.
Fantastic. So if somebody wanted to do this thing that you just talked about, they can just take it for free on your website?
Yep. Yeah. So if you go to conchicoaching.com, there's a drop down for resources.
Okay.
It's one of the resources.
Wow. That is so awesome. I could see how that would be so helpful in so many decision making every day.
And I think what's also really important is typically what people land on the first time is maybe one of the words will stick with them long term. There's a few renditions. So if you tend to be a perfectionist and overthink things, don't overthink it. Just go with your gut, what feels good. Don't take like this is your list. Because I think that's something that a lot of women struggle with is like the fear of what other people are going to think.
Yeah.
So if you go and download this resource, just remember like this is for you. It doesn't matter what other people think. And the moment you can let that go, it's like everything opens up for you.
Absolutely. Wow. That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
As far as, you know, your life and the journey that you've been on, what are some lessons that you think, you know, people can learn from your life, from your journey?
It's so funny because I'm like, oh, I don't know. Let's go with know your values.
There you go. Okay.
Know your values. I did not know my values. I thought my values were like financial success. And I don't even remember where I landed the first time, but I would have probably said like family, financial success, like external things that I couldn't control, fear things. So like start to go into your core, start to truly understand like who you are, what makes you tick, what brings you joy.
I kind of like that you're saying that you can't control family.
You can't.
Yeah, but like people don't necessarily associate that. That's so true. Like I've never really thought of, I mean, I don't have issues with that, but that would be something that people would value and then want to control, but you literally can't do that.
You can't do that.
Yes.
You can hope for the best.
We put a lot of emphasis on that though.
Totally.
Trying to navigate it and make it go a certain way, and it never does.
Never does. So like family gatherings, it's like you come in with one expectation.
Yeah.
They come in with another expectation. And that's typically where, bringing it back to energy leadership, that's where frustration and resentment, catabolic energy comes back in. It's when people come in with these stealth expectations of like case in point of why can't we just have a normal holiday? Why can't we just have a, you know, functioning family? Why can't my kids act like the other kids?
Yeah.
Why can't, the moment you're saying why can't, there is a stealth expectation that needs to be addressed.
Absolutely.
Anything external is probably should not be a non-negotiable.
Yeah.
Because you can't control that. You can only control you and your next step and how you react to things.
Absolutely. Speaking of that, you know, and the holidays, and people right now are with their family. How does one supposed to navigate that? You know, just coming to this realization, like, oh my gosh, I can't control my family. I was expecting this to go different.
Mhm.
My parents are still here for another 2 days. You
Yeah.
know, what do you just relinquish the control? What do you?
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it sounds so simple. It takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
First is the awareness of the situation, awareness that there might be expectations, somebody's not living up to the expectations, awareness that something's not jiving. Then it's acceptance. I accept that this is the situation. I fully accept. So parents, right? Like my parents are gonna, I really hope they're not watching this. I love my parents. Actually, I'll see them next week. But they're going to come here in April for 2 weeks. That's a lot of together time.
Yeah.
There are things that we all do that drive the other ones crazy.
Yeah.
And it's acceptance rather than fighting it. So like, and my dad knows this, like he breathes really loudly and it drives me nuts. It's like, dude, like close the mouth, like quiet breaths. We don't need to like, we're not Darth Vader here.
Oh, that's so funny.
Used to irk me. And I'm like, that's just who he is.
Yeah.
So the moment we can accept the situation or accept somebody else or accept ourselves is the moment we can start making conscious choices about what we want to do about it.
100.
Yeah. So it's like, if you are all of a sudden like, oh my God, my parents are here for 2 more days. I can't handle this. What's the this? Accept the this.
Got it.
And then choose what, like, does that mean, you know what? I need to take a 30-minute break and go for a walk. I need to do this. Like, maybe I need to send them out and like, we just need separate space. Like the moment you can accept it.
Send them on a milk run.
Send them on a milk run.
For doing a barbecue, we need some charcoal.
Yeah. Never mind that there's a foot of snow on the ground. Like, can you go shovel out the fire pit so we can like.
That's great.
But the moment you accept, you shift into a higher energy level, which allows you to think of more opportunity, more solutions, more. Yeah.
That's great.
So yeah, acceptance, which is so hard because our families are our biggest triggers.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. So, obviously we've learned a lot already. We've found out that you do coaching. So what do you do? Tell us what you do. What's your expertise? What's your business? What do you do for the humans? What do you do for the humans?
All the things.
Yeah.
What's really funny? So mindset and energy leadership coach, which you introduced earlier, really passionate about empowering women, small business owners, and executives to break free of the limitations that are holding them back from reaching their full potential and achieving success on their terms. And I absolutely love it. And that might sound super vague. And it's kind of because it is, because I take such a unique approach with all of my clients. Mm-hmm. Like, they come to me with one goal, and then I take a ton of time helping them understand, why is that their goal? What does success actually look like to them, whether it's for the specific goal or something else. And then we go into all the really deep work. And then usually halfway through coaching, they're like, wow, that's not my goal at all. I actually want to do this thing. I'm like, yeah, because that thing's aligned with your values.
Yeah. Wow.
But what's really interesting about coaching, when you partner with a certified coach, mm-hmm. Coaches hold a safe space for you to find your own answers. So a lot of times we're like, I need your advice. I'm like, I don't actually give advice. Like, I educate, I explain energy leadership, I provide insight, I listen to your word vomit and connect dots for you. But all of your answers lie within you.
Yeah.
So I'm a full believer that, like, my clients have all the answers. They know what's best for them. And I am here to provide a safe space every week to talk through what's going on, help them figure out their own stuff, create an action plan forward. I use a success formula, which is awareness plus strategy plus mindset equals success. Yes. And what's really what's really interesting, and maybe it's just because I was good at math, the way we're supposed to do math is like literally or down. So people think awareness is the first step. But the first step is really defining success. So I help people get really clear in what success means. So like what we were talking about earlier, my whole life, I was burnt out because I was chasing my dad's definition of success.
Got it.
I was chasing the definition of success that was out of my control. I can't control how much money I make. I can't control having boatloads of money. We have realized this a few times over with the market crash in 2008, the recent crash in, I don't know if it was officially a crash, but like the dip in 2020 with the COVID. And we can't control any of that.
Yeah.
The only thing we can control is our happiness.
Mm-hmm.
So what does success look like if it's not tied to an outcome?
Yeah.
Because success is something that we can live right here in the moment and set goals to help us continue to get those emotions and those feelings our entire life.
Yeah.
So I do a lot of that with my clients, like helping them get clear. We look at self-sabotaging behaviors. We look at strengths, and then we come up with strategies to minimize the sabotaging behaviors, leverage our strengths. And yeah, I know I'm privileged to be in the position that I'm in to have this job. And I'm really fortunate that I had that spiritual awakening to lead me here.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just so grateful that like I'm in the position that I can help people.
Absolutely.
I love it.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's awesome. I want to ask a question as far as, you know, the main people that, you know, watch her version, the audience is predominantly female. Mm-hmm. And, you know, the journey that you've been on, I'm sure can relate to so many people. And I'd like to just kind of ask your advice as far as, you know, what you would tell females who are feeling kind of like a never-ending sense of chaos, no passion. Mm-hmm. What would be some advice that, because they're everywhere, we're everywhere. Mm-hmm. What would be some advice you'd give to that female?
To stop.
Oh,
to stop. If you're in this like rush, and we live in a hustle economy, we live in a world of chaos.
Yeah.
My advice is to stop, slow down. And that can be really, really uncomfortable for people because stopping, especially for high achievers, which are a lot of the women that I work with.
Yeah.
We have been taught that stopping or quitting is stagnation. It's giving up. But when you stop purposefully and intentionally and use the time to figure out what's going on and why you feel empty and the source of everything.
Yeah.
It's not stagnation. It's an investment in your future. So if you can just stop long enough to just figure out like, why do I feel like I'm keeping up with the Joneses?
Okay.
And then once you stop, it's like, well, where do I go next? Take time to identify your core values. Take time to create a joy list. Because a lot of times if you're in that never-ending chaos and don't have passion and you're burnt out, mm-hmm. you've likely forgotten who you are, the things that make you happy, and you don't have even if you know what makes you happy, you're overcomplicating it and you don't have the energy to do it.
Absolutely.
If you make a joy list, I always recommend people try for 100 things because the first 20 are easy. The first 20 are always in some way, shape, or form. Traveling, which I can't do right now because of COVID. You know, eating out with my friends, which I can't do right now because of COVID. Blah, which I can't. Like, cool. Get to number 50. Get to number 75. Get to number 100. And you're like, I really like sitting and drinking a cup of tea, but not just any cup of tea. I really like. Okay, I'm drinking hot cocoa right now, but I really like hot cocoa out of this big mug because it's nice and cozy. So you can start to introduce joy
Okay.
in baby steps.
Yeah.
And the moment you know your values and have your joy list, the third thing is start prioritizing yourself.
Okay.
And you can do that by every morning that you wake up. You can just ask yourself, what is one thing I can do for me today?
Absolutely.
For some people, that could be sit in the closet for 5 minutes and avoid my husband and children.
Yes.
That's fine.
That would be a thing. Yes.
That's a thing.
Yeah.
With somebody else, it could be go for a 10-mile run or go for a hike. Like, it could be baking cookies. Like, I don't care what it is. What is one thing I can do for me today? It could be focusing on your work and knocking out your to-do list, because that would reduce your stress and anxiety. Great. But you're doing it for you. You're not doing it because it's hanging over your head.
Exactly.
The moment you make the choice, your energy shifts.
Exactly. Very awesome.
Yeah. Do you have any that you would add to that?
Oh, snap. No, I think that is perfect. I think that is absolutely perfect.
I think the stopping. Like, what came up for you when I said, like, stop?
That I need to stop more. You know what, though? Honestly, I absolutely love what I do. You know, I'm in the same position as you are. You know, went through the whole crappy boss and shitty job and found myself here in the coaching field. But, you know, with that being said, yeah, stopping, because sometimes we are, even, I don't mean to project, sometimes even in a position of joy, you know, of loving what I do sometimes forget to take time just for me. You know, coaching in itself is a lot of giving. It's a lot of listening. And sometimes there are times when I should be stopping and smelling the roses a little bit more than I possibly am. And I think that is a constant juggling act that a lot of females, coaching or not, doing something that you love or not, needs to do, and being authentic to what that means for you. Because there will be people in your life that tell you to slow down, even if you don't need to slow down.
Yeah.
So I think that, you know, everyone's work ethic is different. Everybody's mindset is different. And I think that it's really important to, you know, you and I were talking early on about the holidays. And, you know, I was telling you, you know, that I had to make a decision when I left my religion as far as what I was going to do with the holidays, whether I was going to continue or not continue. And that was that was something I had to sit on, and I had to authentically think to myself, what do I actually want to do? Like, authentically. And I think that's something that, what you said, stop and think, what's authentic? What do you actually want to be doing right now?
What do I actually want? Yeah.
I think that's great.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like,
So
what's my next best step? Like, I don't care what other people think. What's right for me?
Exactly. So if, you know, individuals watching right now live, individuals that are going to be watching on the replay, if they wanted to find out more, obviously they can go to your website, but social media, where are you mostly at?
So I am most active on Instagram and LinkedIn. If you message me on Facebook, I will not respond. So if you, so don't hit me up on Facebook. I only have an account so I can have a business thing on Instagram. So Instagram at Conchi Coaching, which is the same spelling as my website. For LinkedIn, you can just search for my name, Jenn Masse, and a bunch of coaching letters after it.
Perfect. So is this you?
Yes.
Yes. All right. So for more information, websites, if you want to follow, Insta, I so appreciate everything. This was fantastic. So much insight on something that we all deal with. on like multiple levels.
Yeah.
On multiple levels. I think that so many of us in general have that expectation of like trying to do all the things for all the people, especially our parents. And I so appreciate you coming on here and reminding us to stop, and to think.
Yeah. And if you feel like you have these expectations, like needing to, like, I need to do this, I need to do this, I like, ask yourself why, whether it's a high expectation for yourself, whether how you perform in your job or how you show up to other people, ask yourself what's driving that. Because if it's giving you a sense of ickiness and stress, it's probably a fear-based value. So just ask yourself why. Like, why do I have this expectation, and what would change if I let go of it?
Exactly.
Yeah. Because we all, like you said, we all, especially women, struggle with this. Because from a young age, we were taught, like, be quiet, look perfect, like, portray a certain image. And we now have to make the choice to break free of that.
Exactly. Well, listen, this was absolutely fantastic. Do you have any closing thoughts? That was kind of closing thoughts, but do you have any closing thoughts before I close up?
I feel like what I just shared was probably like spot on.
Yes, I agree.
Thank you so much for having me, because this was amazing. First of all, I love your podcast and I love your platform because it gives people like me a chance to share my story and get it out there, but also, like you said, like for listeners, it is so empowering to know that we're not alone.
Yes.
If I have, when I kind of made my transition, I feel like I never really embraced the podcast world. So I didn't know that there were other people like me. Yeah. I didn't know that there were other people going through the same thing. And it wasn't until I started my business and became active on Instagram that I found a whole new support network. Yeah. People who followed a similar journey. So thank you for giving people a platform to be seen and heard, because it is so powerful.
Of course. Thank you. And it's women like you who are willing to share your story that's making it possible. So I appreciate you and the audience that follows and the audience that's slowly growing organically. I'm loving. So thank you also to you. For those of you watching live now, I so appreciate your support and your love. For those of you watching on the replay, please hashtag replay so that we know that you are here and that you are watching and that you are supporting us. I am going to close up. So thank you so much for joining us here on Her Version. If you have an amazing story to share of struggle to triumph, be sure to reach out to me here or at herversion.life. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria, and I am so grateful to be sharing a platform that allows people to share their truth and inspire others. Do something awesome today.